Baseball season is coming, baby. Here's your AL Central key additions full screen. By the way, last year, like the White Sox winning the division by the highest number of games, finishing 13 above Cleveland. That's crazy. Okay, so some key additions here. I'm looking at Chicago. Look at that, former Red Sox, Joe Kelly. Oh my God, former Red Sox, Sandy Leon for Cleveland. Oh my God, former Red Sox pitcher, Eduardo Rodriguez for Detroit, Kansas City. Zach Greinke, welcome home. Carlos Correa, easily, by far, the biggest name, biggest addition to any team inside the American League Central.
So now, to break it down, we're going to bring in our MLB panel. So let's take a look and see who's on our MLB panel. Erik Halterman and Nick Friar are here.
Erik, man, I haven't seen you in forever. How are you?
Pretty good. Good to be back. Better talking baseball than labor, I think.
Yeah, all right,
sure. No one likes labor.
Yeah, guys, let's start with the Minnesota Twins because they were the busiest team in the division, right? Signed Carlos Correa away from Houston. That was like the big, thing that you were freaking out about.
Just ginormous.
Traded for Sonny Gray, Gio Urshela, Gary Sanchez. So they seem to be making some all-in type moves here. They're plus 500 to win this division behind the heavily favored White Sox. So, Erik, is this a good bet?
I can't believe we're starting this segment with Correa and not the Guardians' big move, Sandy Leon. But yeah, this is, I think, one of the better bets out there. I definitely think the White Sox should be favored. But the Twins at plus 500, that converts to a 16.7% chance. If you look at the projections, according to both Fangraphs and Baseball Prospectus, they like the Twins division odds more than that. They're at 19% on Fangraphs, all the way up at 26.1%. On Baseball Prospectus. And the thing to remember here is that this Twins team really underachieved last season. They won 73 games, but they weren't necessarily a 73-win team according to their overall talent. I remember they finished first or second in the division in each of the previous 4 years. They won 101 games in 2019. Obviously, it's not the same team from that year, so this isn't a team we should be expecting to reach those heights, but it's not as if they were starting with a bad team and making those additions. They were starting with an okay team, had a good offseason, and there could still be more coming. They keep getting linked with pitchers like Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas. So I think at pretty good odds there, I like them as a strong underdog.
Nick, plus 500 to win this division. What do you think?
Yeah, I can't go with them on this one, but it's kind of a similar thing we were talking about with the Mariners when we're breaking down the AL West. I still obviously like the White Sox a lot more, and I feel like Erik feels the same way as me. But I think when it comes to talking postseason, I think betting on them to make the postseason might be a more comfortable bet because we're looking out East, right? And we have 4 teams that are playoff contenders. They could all very well make the postseason with this expanded format. Then, of course, the White Sox, the Astros. And I still like the Mariners more, too. But still, I think at plus 175, looking at the Twins to possibly make a postseason this year is the more sound bet because I still like the White Sox a lot more. Also, when you look at their win total, too, 81.5, I do think that is very much in range. I think that is the safest bet if you're going to bet on the White Sox looking ahead to this season because last season, the second-best team had 80 wins. The White Sox, I think the Twins are a better team than the Guardians were last year, so I think that that's also in range.
All right, yeah, so the White Sox really coasting to that division title, even while playing barely above 500 baseball last year. But, their roster is already pretty stacked. So Abreu, Jimenez, Roberts, it makes up one of the most potent lineups in baseball. This is a team that has championship aspirations. Chicago's odds to win the AL are at plus 500, and then their odds to win the World Series are at plus 1,200. Nick, do you see any value on this Chicago team to win big this season?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you can definitely make a case to have them to back them to win the AL this year at plus 500 for sure. But I think, when I look at what they did in the postseason when they took on the Astros, they got smacked around when they saw them in the postseason. You also lost Rodon. As much as you're going to get a full season of some of these guys where they didn't have that last year, going into the postseason, that's still that issue still has yet to be resolved. As much as Joe Kelly may help a little bit with that, I don't know. I think that the best bet for them going into the season isn't actually their win total. I think if you look at the division straight forecast options, you go and look at the AL Central, it's plus 240 for the White Sox to come in first place and Minnesota to come in second. And I think that is your best bet right now when you're looking at trying to get bang for your buck.
All right, Erik, the White Sox, they are situated here to kind of have a tougher time in this division this year.
It's tougher than it's been, but it's not a whole lot tougher. So I do think actually maybe the division is the best bet for them, even though I said the Twins are pretty good odds too. Those other three teams, while the Royals and Tigers are improving, I don't think they're there yet. It would take a lot of things breaking right at the same time for them to actually be legitimate division challengers. The Pacoda projections over at Baseball Prospectus actually has those bottom two teams with win totals in the 60s. So the division looks pretty safe, according to both those projections. The World Series seems to be more or less fairly priced. You're talking about a 7-8% chance according to the odds, and the projections have them at about 6.5. And there's room for another move there. A contending team like the White Sox could definitely add pieces. There's always been this talk of a potential Craig Kimbrell trade that could help them fill a hole elsewhere and improve those odds a little bit. So I think they're priced fine, especially when you consider that the new playoff system could help the White Sox, or really it could hurt other teams more, with the bottom of the Central being the softest of the American League divisions. Again, even though it's improved, I think it's still the softest. Remember that the top two division winners get a bye this year, whereas the third division winner won't. And I think the White Sox odds of being in that top two and getting that first round bye, it does help their overall playoff odds and their World Series odds a bit.
All right, let's get to those bottom three teams in the division. Yeah, baby. They all have win totals hovering around the mid-70s. Detroit, 77.5. Cleveland, 76.5. Kansas City, 74.5. So, like, Nick, which of those teams is most likely to eclipse their win total? Cleveland, the last time they paced for fewer than 80 wins was 2012.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to see what's happened with the Guardians over the years. And look, the Royals, too, a team that I definitely had a soft spot for a while. Of course, they were pretty successful for a short bit, but that's what happens with small market teams. But we look at the Tigers, and obviously they were a big surprise last year. They won 77 games. They're projected 77.5 right now. So to me, they became better in the offseason. They added Erod. They added Pineda. We're expecting to see Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green as part of the lineup this year. They added Javi Baez. And, of course, you still have Scope, Grossman, Badu. So I look at this team, and I don't think, they're going to contend for the postseason necessarily. But, if they stay healthy throughout the entirety of the season, they added better guys. There's no reason to think they can't at least build on what they were last season, and all that. And building on that would just be 78 wins. That's better than they did last season. So I think they can get that at minimum. If you're feeling really good about the Tigers this year and you want to take a little extra risk, I talked about the division straight forecast for White Sox and Twins. When you look at Tigers, White Sox, for the White Sox to win the division and the Tigers to come in second, and I would say if the Twins don't do it, I would think it'd be the Tigers. That's plus 450. I still like the other option better, but if you really like the Tigers and think that they can pull off a little surprise this season, that'd be the way to go.
Eric, which of these teams do you want to take the over on their win total?
Yeah, so again, taking a look at those projection systems as a starting point of the analysis here, because I think computers are pretty good at conceptualizing an entire roster at once in the way that our puny human minds can't always. The only team that's above the win total on both Fangraphs and Baseball Prospectus is actually Cleveland. Surprisingly, I would think. The other two are getting more of the hype because they're interesting, but Cleveland's just kind of boring. They're settling into this territory where it seems like they shoot for 78 to 82 wins, and hey, if they get lucky, maybe they work their way to 88 and win a wild card some seasons. Remember, too, that they won 90-plus games if you prorate their 2020 numbers in the previous 5 seasons. They've had some talent drain, obviously, since then, but they still won 80 last year. I can't really say they got a lot worse, and they won that 80 even with their ace Shane Bieber missing about half the season. So I think even though this is the least exciting team in the division, it's still a bland fine team that shouldn't find it too hard to win 77 to 80 games.
All right, Nick, which player futures in this division do you have your eyes on?
Yeah, so I got a hitter one and a pitcher one. Tim Anderson, of course, of the White Sox, over 164.5 hits. Came just shy of the number last year and went just over it in 2019. In both seasons, he played 123 games, which, of course, you think, all right, is he going to still deal with that same injury problem? Even if he does, he's still within range of that every single season, and he's hit over 300 over the last 3 seasons, of course, 2020 being that shortened season. And the other one I like, too, Eduardo Rodriguez, over 185.5 strikeouts. He had 185 on the nose last season in 157.2 innings. Then he had 213 in 2019 with just over 200 innings. And of course, again, the middle season didn't really matter. But over the last 4 seasons, he's had a K per 9 of 9.4 or better. And also I know his numbers were pretty bad outside of his strikeout numbers last season, but he was coming off a missed year in 2020. He didn't play at all. He was dealing with COVID health issues. So I think for him, where he struggled a little bit last year, we should see him bounce back pretty well. So I think 185 should be very easy for him to surpass this season.
All right, Erik, AL Central player props.
Yeah, the most interesting one to me is Franmil Reyes to hit over 34.5 homers. I hit 30 last year, but that was in just 115 games. He missed some time with an oblique. He had 37 in 152 games in 2019. The projections this season call for as high as 41, as low as 34, which I guess would be slightly over. But in general, there's a consensus that he should finish up in the high 30s. And I'd get behind that. He absolutely crushes the ball. 16.9% barrel rate, ranked 12th among players with at least 450 plate appearances last season. Bit of a strikeout problem, although his strikeouts last year were actually the worst of his career, so that could even come down a few ticks, giving him a few more chances to hit homers. And then also it's, I guess, more future adjacent than a proper player future, but for AL Rookie of the Year, this is where the big names are. I think Riley Green at plus 1,200 is maybe more interesting than Bobby Witt at plus 330 and Spencer Torkelson at plus 340. I think it's correct that Green is the third out of those three, but I think the gap in those odds might overstate the gap between those guys. Green is an elite prospect and has every chance, I think, of being good right away. Last year, he hit 301 with a 921 OPS, 24 homers in 124 games in the upper minors. So I think he's in that same class as Witt and Torkelson and is one of the more interesting options near the top of the board there.